You're listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracey Jones.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Tremendous Leadership Leaders on Leadership podcast, where we pull back the curtain on leadership and we talk to leaders of all ages and stages about what it takes to truly pay the price of leadership. And today I have a very special guest. His name is Israel Duran. Israel, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tracey. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this amazing individual you're about to hear from. He is a highly sought after business growth strategist. He's a speaker and a trainer who is passionate about helping purpose-driven leaders discover, design, and deliver their unique gifts to the world. Israel specializes in equipping entrepreneurs to build generational wealth and scale profitable businesses that create a lasting global impact, all by leveraging the power of the internet. And that's how we met. I'm going to tell you about that. So whether you're scaling to 7 figures or leading a Fortune 500 company, Israel's innovative strategies are designed to unlock potential and help you profit with purpose. So let's dive in and learn from this incredible leader. So Israel, our folks always like to know how we connected. And I got an email from somebody representing you and said, hey, you have to meet this individual. And as I get many of those, and the Lord prompted me, hey, I'm going to check this out because there's an awful lot of them. And I just looked at your website. I looked at your messages. And we talked shortly after that. We've talked several times since then. And I just want to thank you again for agreeing to be on the podcast. And to our tribe, you're in for a real treat. So Israel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tracey. And that's such a heartfelt message. And you're right. You know, it's sometimes these conversations, these connections are ordained for being able to create and help others create something. I was talking to someone today about this. You know, when we mix painting colors together, right? Like to get pink, or to get pink, you mix red and white, right? And many times God wants to create partnerships, collaborations, and he'll connect his people because he's trying to create something new, right? He wants to reach the unreachable. So I'm excited to be on here with you to be able to add value and also just bless the people.
Thank you. I love that mental hook of the mixing the paints. That's beautiful. And 2025 truly is going to be a year of collaborations, is it not?
Yes, it is.
You're the first one on my podcast for this year. So I think that's definitely true. So Israel, I sent you a copy of my father, Charlie Jones's speech that he gave again and again and again. There you go. The price of leadership. And those of you that know my father, many of our listeners do, he was very pragmatic. He was a practitioner. He loved leadership, but he was also very down to earth about if you're really going to be a leader, there's a price that you're going to have to pay. And the first price that he talked about, Israel, is loneliness. And, we've heard that it's lonely at the top and heavy is the head that wears the crown. But can you unpack for us what loneliness means in the leadership context? Because it's a fact, and perhaps a time where you went through a season of it in your life and some wisdom for our listeners?
100%. I'm reminded of this great truth. A man's gift will make room for him and bring him before great men and women. However, many times that gift has to be developed, it has to be designed, it has to be discovered in the secret, in loneliness, where no one's seeing you, where you're all alone, you're dark, it's hidden, it's the secret place, and that's where you get refined. When we look outside, depending on where you are in the United States, right now it just snowed yesterday, so there's not a lot of leaves on the trees. But if I were to look outside in the summertime, I would see, leaves coming off of the tree, right? Why? Because that tree has roots, and a tree grows in 2 directions, right? It grows gravitropically, where nobody sees it, where it's hidden, loneliness, and then it grows phototropically. You see, we as leaders, depending on what your calling is, your vision, your purpose, the common denominator between all of us is making sure we spend that time going deep gravitropically where nobody sees us. So when people do see us, we have those roots that hold us and sustain us. Mm-hmm. And I love what your dad has shared with that principle, because I think it's something that in today's age, it's missing. I know I didn't understand this concept when I first got into what I was doing. I had to learn kind of by falling on my face. But it's such a great resource because even Jesus said, if any man seek to follow me, first he must deny himself and pick up his cross. And this book here, the message your dad gave, does the same thing. It gives people the clarity, like if you desire to be a leader, well, understand that these are things that you need to pay.
Beautiful. I love that. Gravitopically. And what a beautiful, again, illustration as we're going through this. Go deep, and only you can go down and get that nourishment. So thank you, Israel, for that. All right. So we talked about loneliness. The next topic he talked about was weariness. And I can remember growing up and listening to him, and he was like, Tracey, as you go out amongst people, there's going to be some people that do way more than what you expect of them. There's going to be a lot that do less, and it's tiring because it all falls, the buck stops with you. So how do you stay at top fighting form and combat weariness, which is a part of just this mortal coil that we're in right now?
You know, I love the promise of God that he talks about the Sabbath's rest. And being able to rest is such a key concept that I think in the 21st century has been missed because we live in a democracy, right? We live in a world of democracy. But back in the day when people used to have kingdoms and there was kings and Caesars, right, and queens, there was a principle or a concept that people went by, and it was the principle that's the following: by resting, you reign. By resting, you reign. And true kings and queens, they reign by resting. And I think when it comes to weariness, if we're not careful, because there's always going to be that season of weariness, like you said, the crown is sometimes heavy, but there has to be an intentional season where we shut things off and we have a day of the week where we don't do any work, when you don't answer calls, when you just focus in on your family, focus in on just spending time on you so you can actually be a caregiver for others. Because if you're constantly pouring out, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get but like they say, burnt. So, you know, by resting you reign is something that I like to think about often because it reminds me, okay, I got to spend time in my secret place. I have to spend time with God. I have to focus in. I have to pray. I have to meditate. I have to read, because that's what's going to allow me to gain strength through that. I'm also reminded of another scripture that I love, and it says, let the weak say I am strong. And how are we strong? Well, we're strong when we actually spend that time with God, spend that time resting and putting all the distractions out.
Do you pick a particular time to Sabbath? I know some people still do. You talked about the things that you do daily. And of course, 100% of the people on here do. Do you Sabbath? Do you carve out time in your calendar, block it off?
Yes, we have a process where, well, my wife and I, we have 5 children as well. So it's the Sabbath for us is it's a rest within the family. That's why I said focus on the family.
I love that.
The beautiful thing about what we do too is, well, before I say about what we do, let me talk about what we're thinking or what we're being, because I am a big believer in, especially with leadership, being or thinking or that mindset always comes before the actual behavior that will then lead to the outcome. And for the listeners in the room, regardless of where you are, if you're already in senior leadership or you're at a high level already looking to, you know, that next season of your life, one of the things that I learned from falling on my face was that consistency is key and Christ is king. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we listen to things like I could talk about consistency, for example. And you might say, well, I already know about consistency. That's the most dangerous thing that someone can do, because what I found out in my own life is I had that mindset. Oh, consistency, I have that already. And I would avoid really tuning in and like focusing in until I fell on my face, Dr. Tracey. And then I said, wait a second, I have to come into covenant with consistency. I have to come into covenant with charity. I have to come into covenant with compassion. Those are the 3 C's, by the way. We as leaders, we need to come into covenant with charity, which is the form of love. We need to come into connection with compassion and with connection with our calling. Now, those mindsets with consistency as well, those 3 C's are, it's what's more important to focus on that, to really adhere to that, because that's going to naturally give you the flow of what to do, right? When sometimes we often focus on what to do, people say, well, you know what? I'm just going to do what she did, or I'm going to, but that may not be the right move for you, right? But if you focus on the identity, the mindset, on those 3 C's, practically charity, which is love to God and love to your fellow neighbor, the consistency, meaning being consistent with whatever you're doing, and then having charity, which is or compassion, excuse me, which is where compassion is the fountain of miracles. That's what's really going to unlock whether you choose to do a Sabbath, however you would want to do it. I just don't want to give somebody a specific, because I don't want people to make the assumption, well, if I do what he does, I'm going to get the same results. Where so much people do that, Dr. Tracey. And I feel like a lot of people are stuck because they're trying to put someone else's armor and they haven't figured out their own stones yet.
Well, you talked about stuck. It gives you the flow. And when we're weary, it's because something's, like you said, we put on the wrong armor. We're trying to go into a stream that is not the designated stream. We're trying to open a door that does not have our name on it. And so I love that you said, when you get in that flow, you don't just believe it, but you get that knowledge of, okay, here we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so important, because leaders on leadership, right? The people that are listening now, you listening now at home, or your home office, or driving, or in the gym, you are a leader of a leader. That's who you are. And many times with leaders, we are constantly pouring out so much that many times we don't have that opportunity to have somebody to pour into us. That's why I love what you do with tremendous leadership in providing the best of the best, literally, for affordable cost, by the way, too. Motivational material at all levels and all spheres, to do what? To empower people, to encourage them, to edify them, to build their faith. Because that's what we need. Because it's really hard to get us, when we're constantly giving out, we need a flow. We need a stream. We need a fountain that we can also tap into, so we can receive our daily wisdom. I love what you're doing with your platform and everything you and your dad have built in the foundation. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Israel. I claim that, and I really appreciate you saying that. Okay, so we talked about loneliness. We talked about weariness and getting in the flow to combat that. The next thing he talked about was a term called abandonment. And, we hear about that. Well, there's fear of abandonment that leads to codependency, or as an animal rescuer, it's like, oh, you abandoned that pet. But what he meant was that abandonment means stop doing what you like and want to do in favor of what you ought and need to do. So it's much more about singularity, pruning, and habits. So Israel, we talked about this, the right time versus the right time. I mean, God has gifted us. We're driven. We're knowledgeable. There isn't pretty much anything that we couldn't pick up and have just a modicum of success with it. But that's not what we're here to do. How do you hone in and know exactly what your zone is, what that particular door, like you said, this armor has my name on it. How do you deal with abandonment when there's so many wonderful needs out there? But as we know, not every need is a calling.
I love the question, and I want to share a little bit of my history to then give the answer, because I think it will give people the perspective and the vision and clarity to see, okay, wow, I get it. And people are going to love this. Back in 1993, my dad, his name was Domingo Duran, and my dad was having a bunch of chest pains on his left side. And he had said to my mom, who was a doctor in Dominican Republic, she wasn't able to transfer the license, but here in the because of the language barrier. And my mom had told him, hey, go to the ER. So my dad went to the ER. My dad waited 3.5 hours. And for whatever reason, they were attending other people before him because there were other bigger emergencies at the time. And my dad, unfortunately, went back home, and he had what the medical community call a STEMI. And he died. He died of a massive heart attack at home. He died alone. And my mom essentially found him. And Israel David Duran, I was only about 3 months when my dad stepped into eternity. And growing up, Dr. Tracey, when you say the word abandonment, I can feel that, I can sense it, because that's how I felt for a long time. And I made a lot of mistakes growing up. But I've also discovered this treasure as well, that what children don't have as a child, they typically value as an adult. So there's 4 specific things, Dr. Tracey, that I did not have as a child that I value as an adult. now because I had to become the man that I wanted in my own life. And those four different things are: number one, identity; number two, purpose; number three, vision. And you get your voice from your vision. And number four, a custom plan. Those are the four things I wanted from my dad. So why am I bringing this up? Because when we talk about abandonment and being able to focus in on the key thing that you're supposed to be focusing on in this season, we can't answer that question without positioning purpose first. Because purpose will always flow from identity. Identity is the highest mountain of purpose. So, but the thing about purpose is purpose may change. Let me explain it in this way. You might have been in a certain position 20 years ago, but now you're doing something completely different. A lot of times when people have to deal with transition, there's a sense of abandonment because there's a sense of, I was doing this for so long, people knew me under this identity, and now that I'm letting go of this thing, now there's an abandonment because now I have to now refocus or refine or realign to what my purpose is in this season or what God's calling me to do. And a lot of people don't only go through that abandonment stage, but they go through the depression stage because they have what is called their identity. And I'm going to say this and hopefully nobody throws stones at us, but they have what we call an idol in place of their identity. And then then the thing that they did for that season became their identity. So when God calls them to let go of it, it's like they're fighting with God. And then there has to be that abandonment where God says, I need you to leave your promised land, Abraham. And Abraham is like, Lord, you want me to leave? I'm going to take you to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I need you to leave your promised land. And Abraham's like, he kind of got the memo, but he brought Lot. And we know what happened there. But we can go on and on. But I just wanted to give that frame, that pre-frame there, that purpose is so important. And I do have 4 practical questions that people can ask themselves and meditate and think through that can give clarity and confidence and help people communicate what their purpose is in this next season. Okay. And I can go over those 4 if you like. But I want to at least give you, I'm talking a lot here.
I appreciate it. I love the context. That's fantastic and touching on that. But please go right ahead.
The 4 questions of purpose, for those of you that are believers or consider yourself to be a born-again believer like myself, these 4 questions, you'll be able to go a little bit deeper because I actually get them from Jesus Christ of Nazareth. He started his earthly ministry when he was about 30 years of age, and then he died a horrific death, very terrible. I mean, he got beaten 39 stripes, by the way, and that's a Roman stripe. So just like the Passion of the Christ didn't do it justice. It was much worse than that. And he went to the cross, and he died a horrific death with his mother in front of him. That's very, very hard. And he was in the grave for 3 days. And then God rose him from the dead. And when I was reading one day, and after listening and inspired through another minister, I identified 4 questions that he had in his life that were very essential in his life that I now teach when I'm dealing with leadership, but also when I'm dealing with business owners as well. And those 4 questions are extremely simple. They start with question number 1. What do you love to do? Now, what you love to do reveals a gift that you have.
Right.
Because people tell me all the time, Israel, I don't know where to start. I don't know. I'm like, well, what do you love to do? Start there, right? Well, I love to do this. Right? Okay, so let's go into that, right? The thing that you love is typically the thing that you're called to release to the world. That's why John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world, his love, that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him, Jesus, shall not perish but have everlasting life. So because God so loved the world that he gave. So the thing that you love reveals in part a gifting that you can have and that you have. Question number 2 is, what do you hate? Now that word is strong. I get a lot of believers that tell me that's a strong word, but even God says that there's 6 things that he hated, 7 that are abominations unto his sight. That word hate is very important though, because it's polarization, right? The law of polarization teaches us that when you go to an ultimate extreme, like for example, cold, and you go really cold, you'll get to like at the peak of really cold, it'll actually burn you and there'll be heat.
Mm.
And it's the same thing with hot or heatness. When you go extremely hot, it gets to a point where you actually get cold. It gets cold.
Mm-hmm.
And then they meet in the middle. That's the law of polarization. So the word hate is there for a reason. So what you hate reveals a situation that you're called to bring a solution to.
Okay.
1 John 3:8, it says, for the devil sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested. There's that word purpose again. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested that he might destroy the works of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So part of God, Jesus' purpose was to be manifested to destroy sin on the cross, to destroy the works of the devil, the power that sin had over mankind.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that you hate in your life, things that you've maybe gone through, the voids that you've gone through, those are the voids that you're called to use your voice to speak against. It's going to give you that vision so you can speak to those voids. And it's also going to give you a solution that you can bring to. So you can change that problem and create a solution in that place.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
I can go on and on, but I want to be able to flow and riff back and forth because.
No, I love that. No, and I love that you brought up that verse. Oh, hate. Yeah, there's things God hates. Sin, most of all.
Yeah.
But he does list that. So I love that. Bring a solution to, and your gift becomes your identity. I'm ready for number 3 and 4.
Number 3 is what makes you cry.
Okay.
Now, a lot of men say, well, I'm a man, I don't cry. Men cry. And I cry often because, I know where I was and where I am now by God's grace and where I'm headed. And it's still the struggles that we go through in life. But I'm thankful because it could have been differently if I didn't have him in my life. And like the what makes you cry, by the way, reveals the situations that you're called to bring joy to. Oh. So now you can take those tears of pain and to transform them into tears of joy. Jesus is the resurrection. So and the Bible records a couple of times when Jesus cried. One of them was when he looked over Jerusalem and he said, how often did I wanted to come, bring you in like the hen does, but you wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
Right. He said that he literally wept over Jerusalem. And then he also wept over Lazarus' death, his friend. Mm-hmm. And he literally turned those tears of pain into tears of joy. Also, too, compassion is such a beautiful thing. Like when we have compassion in leadership, it's such an amazing thing because one of my brands is called Service of Speaking. And I teach people that service is for everyone, but the highest level of service is speaking, like actually speaking into the lives of people. And I give people this analogy, Dr. Tracey. Mm-hmm. When we speak, our words should be like water that wash people's feet.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And the way that you can really make an impact in your organization, in your business, in your ministry, in your calling, even in your family with your children, is speaking with compassion. Some of the greatest miracles I've seen, some of the greatest, highest, most grossing, let's just go on the profit side financially that I've seen, are events and books and things that are created with compassion. There's something supernatural about it. So that what makes you cry reveals compassion. And we need more leaders that are more vulnerable because that's what actually creates a connection with the people that you're looking to inspire and help with your leadership.
Excellent. Number 4.
And then number 4 is what or who annoys you. What are the attributes that get on your nerves? One of the attributes that annoyed Jesus was pride. So what did Jesus do? Well, he saw Peter and all the other 11 disciples, apostles. One of them betrayed him, but he still was going to do the same thing, meaning washing his feet. And he said to them, I'm going to wash your feet. And Peter said some interesting words. And this is Peter, the one that got right who the Son of God was. He said, you're the Son of the living God when Jesus asked him. This is the same Peter. Peter still had pride. And Jesus said, because Peter said, you're not going to wash my feet. Absolutely not. It sounds good, but it's actually pride.
Yes.
Sounds like super spiritual, but no, it's we leaders, we leaders, we're so quick to give, to be able to serve. But what about when God says, okay, I want you to sit now and I want somebody else to wash your feet?
Oof, yeah.
See, that's the test of a true leader.
Mm.
So Peter, he thought he had a good, I'm sure he could look around. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to let him wash. I got to wash his feet, right? But he was, and then Jesus said these amazing words that were so powerful. He said, Peter, if you don't let me wash your feet, you will have no part in me. Watch him now. That word part is connected to the word impartation. In other words, Jesus was trying to become one with Peter. Peter understood the message. He got it.
Yeah.
Just like he understood who the Son. And then he said, he's changed his words in the book of John. He said, wash my feet, my hands, and my head. So he completely humbled himself. He got it. Because humility, this is something that gets our mind. This is one of the attributes that get our mind there, by the way, is introverted pride in leaders and people. Because it's robbing you. It's stealing from you. It's that thief that's there that we can't many times see, but it's stealing from us. Mm-hmm. Because humility, we have heard it said, you just have to decrease, brother, and he must increase. You've heard that say. People misquote John the Baptist.
Right.
That's talking about a dispensation of law and grace, the law and the prophets that was transitioning to grace. That's what that's talking about there, by the way. Humility, Dr. Tracey, and you know this already, is not about thinking less of myself, but humility is not even thinking about ourselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when someone says, "Let me wash your feet," go ahead. When someone says, "Wow, Dr. Tracey, you did a great job," you're not going to say, "Oh, it's not me. It's not me. It's." You're going to say, "Thank you." That's humility.
Yeah. It is.
And
I laugh because we're so quick to do that. Oh, it wasn't me. And it's like, but just say thank you. Yeah. That's why I'm cracking up, because I do that sometimes. It's like, Tracey, just shut up and say thank you.
We've all done it. We've all done it. But God is not insecure.
I know. Yeah.
You know, God is on the throne. You know, it's like sometimes we think, God, let me tell you something. No one's going to take God's glory. God's glory, no one's taking it. You know?
Love it.
Like, you know, so these four questions, the attributes that fourth question about what annoys you are actually the things that you're called to serve through speaking.
Yeah.
Because Jesus, the Bible says in the book of Mark chapter 6, verses 30 to 36, around there, it says that Jesus saw, so he had a vision. He saw the people like sheep without a shepherd. That's what he saw. What did he see? He saw a void. His vision revealed a void. And what did he begin to do? And the Bible says he was moved by compassion.
Yeah.
And then he began to teach them many things. Mm-hmm. So what did he do? His vision activated by seeing his voice or his void, created his voice. Same thing he did in the beginning.
Yep.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was darkness, and there was void upon the face of the deep. And God saw this, and then God said, "Let there be light." Same thing: vision, void, voice. And these four questions, hopefully, has brought some clarity to you.
Oh, absolutely. And I know it will, our guests. So that really dovetails very nicely into the next one, which is vision. And again, Charles was not like, it's not like you don't have to have a dove alight your head while you're being baptized. But, sometimes I know I grew up with learning about the heroes of the Bibles and like Zig Ziglar and Og Mandino, listening to these people thinking, well, now they're a vision person, but I'm just, I'm in the real world. And my dad's like, no, vision is really seeing what needs to be done and doing it. So like you said, when Jesus looked out, he saw the void, and then that translated into, he did something about it. And that's what leads to that. So I'd love to hear any other thoughts, because vision is a lot of times when I'm working with leaders, we're great executors. We're very pragmatic and practical, very tactical. But when it gets to the vision thing, sometimes it comes very naturally to people. But what words of advice would you have for our leaders out there? Because a lot of them are in this next phase where they're free to serve and they're looking for that visionary calling.
Yeah, I want to share a story about a young gentleman that I heard his history. He grew up in Compton, California, in a very bad neighborhood. Most people make it out either dead or in prison or just really bad stuff. Less than, I think, 3% of the people, that the males there, actually come out alive or even successful.
Wow.
And they interviewed him. He was a very successful football guy. And they interviewed him and they asked him, he's like, dude, how did you make it out? Like, how did you get everybody around you, all your friends, like they're not alive or they're in prison. How did you make it out? And they were like, how did you make it out when your father didn't do anything? And then they started to go under the generations. And he said these words, and I literally, I want to find this interview again, because I saw this like maybe 9 to 10 years ago, around there, like maybe 8 years ago. And I can't remember the interview, but he said these words and it never left me. He said, he looked at the guy and he said, I dream so big and so wide and so deep and so profound and so out of my reach that the only way that the vision can come to pass if God himself says, I'm going to partner with this.
Okay.
And when he said that to me, I said, what I got, or when I heard him say that, what I got, like imparted into me, is dream with God, dream bigger. Mm-hmm. And my recommendation for the leaders that are under my voice is dream bigger. Don't just plan according to what you're able to do. Allow for some faith. Allow for God to say, you know what? I'm going to partner with this, and allow for God to overwhelm you with his goodness and his abundance.
Yeah. The evidence of things not seen, but just like you said, dream bigger. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's amazing. Thank you, Israel. So we covered loneliness, we covered weariness, abandonment, and vision. Is there anything else, Israel, that God's laid on your heart as we're sharing with our listeners? And I know they're just waiting for the next insight or story to come from you. What else would you like to leave our listeners with?
Anytime when someone asks me that question, Tracey, or they ask me, hey, what would you do if you can go back? Or what would be the last thing you can say to our listeners? My answer is always the same. And it's founded in Proverbs 18, verse 16. Mm-hmm. And my answer is this: discover your gift.
Yeah.
Hone into it and begin serving it now.
Oof. Beautiful. So let's talk about that. How do people get in touch with you, Israel? They're listening to you. They want to connect with you. They want to maybe even work with you. What's the best way to contact you?
The best way to contact me would be going to my website, israelduran.com. And we have free gifts available for everyone. And there's also a form there that you can fill out if you were interested in how we can serve you.
I love it. And we will have that in the show notes. And Israel, tell me a little bit about your website and the listeners out here, the type of clients you work with. I know you mentioned different people in the past, but just so people get an idea of it.
Yeah, we work with leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries who want to get their message out there using speaking, social media, and the internet. Mm-hmm. We have a process we've been working with over the last 12 months, a little bit over 1,300 people, called the Service of Speaking, which is really a way that's aligned to God's word and biblical and business-based principles to help you grow and get your message out there. And we don't only teach a U.S. framework, we teach something that can take your message globally as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. And is that, speaking of your vision, where do you want to go in the year to come? We're just on the cusp of a new one. What's your vision for 2025, Israel?
We want to continue to serve the market and help people build generational wealth through speaking and business. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, Dr. Tracey, is that in December, we just had a summit that we did, a global summit. We were marketing to all 50 countries about, all the way from Japan to Qatar to the United Kingdom to Dubai to the Caribbean islands, Canada. We went United Kingdom, Germany, Australia. We went through a bunch of different nations. And we're going to continue to build the global platform because I believe that people's gifts are not just based in their own community, but their gifts are also for the global market, the people out there. So we're going to be honing in on that and really focusing in on serving the people through what God has given us.
That's beautiful. Israel, again, thank you. This has been a wonderful time. I feel poured into. I feel rejuvenated. You've given me much to think about. Thank you for your knowledge of the word and your rightful dividing of it and application. So thank you again, Israel.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And to our tremendous tribe out there, thank you so much for being a part of all that we do. Remember, as Charlie Jones said, you'll be the same person 5 years from now that you are today, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. So make them both tremendous. If you like what you heard, please hit the subscribe button. Share this incredible message that you heard from Israel with another leader that needs to hear it as well. And thank you so much. Keep on paying the price of leadership. Have a tremendous rest of the day.
Thank you for listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracey Jones. Find out more about Dr. Jones at www.tremendousleadership.com. If you've been ignited by something you heard in this episode, let us know by leaving a review for Tremendous Leadership wherever you listen to podcasts, or by sending us a message through www.tremendousleadership.com.